So that means if they would have did a great background on him, he's not even on the police force. And Tamir Rice is still walking today, still breathing, still living. That caught me, and it don't tell people that in society, that he was released from the police department because of that reason. They just tell you he was released.
That was the only reason that he was released.
Yeah, that was the only reason, because he had incorrect information on his application when he applied to be a part of the Cleveland Police Department.
So not because
he killed anybody. Not because he killed anybody. That's profound.
That is definitely profound.
And that's what homicide is, the killing of a person by another. That, if people look back into that particular story, he had a toy gun without the orange part on the tip. But when you see the video, he stated, the police officer, that he told him 2 gestures to freeze and, put down the weapon. But when you watch the video, he just rolled up and shot him. Little drive-by. So we go into the next thing, like murder. Murder is up under homicide. Homicide committed with malice aforethought. I know people thinking, what in the heck is malice aforethought? That means
I'm definitely thinking, what is that? Now say that word again. I can't even repeat it.
Malice aforethought.
Malice afterthought.
Aforethought.
Spell that.
AFORETHOUTGHT. Yeah. Aforethought.
Okay, now give us a definition of that.
Basically, I summed it up in one word: unjustified. Murder is basically something that's unjustified. So now I go to my next person. Sandra Bland comes to mind when something is unjustified. She was in Texas, and she had a tough life. She used to get stopped by the cops a lot.
Now, is she a person of color or
black lady, black woman?
Okay.
She was a Facebook particular celebrity. She would do podcasts. She showed that she was changing her life around.
Say her name one more time.
Sandra Bland.
Sandra Bland.
Now, Sandra Bland, they said, was a suicide after she had a potential job with Prairie View once she got out of jail. And her whole family admitted that she was not in that state of mind. They said that she had suicide. And when they did background on that particular case, they found out that the police department in the jail all made bad statements, falsified documents. So everything is sketchy about how she killed herself in her cell. They first said she hung herself. That cell she had, you couldn't hang herself in the room. So they basically
lied. Is what all the police officers stated in their statements. In that jail that Sandra Bland was actually found dead in. That she killed herself, that she hung herself at first. But then they, at all deaths, they do a check to see if you could actually physically hang yourself in the cell they have you. She couldn't do it. If she was to tie a rope to anything and just hang, there was not enough room. So they had to retrace their statement. And this is all verified online. You can go check this. That's the funny part. So once they realize that these are falsified statements, then what happened next?
That's when it all goes to chaos. Nobody knows what happens. These jails and prisons have a way of hiding you and hiding everything that happened on tape. There's no tape. You can't see no footage. Nothing. We don't know what happened with our last few days. You could try to pull it up.
And it just kind of
draws a blank.
Wow. That is really...
So that's a murder. Like, think about it. She didn't have any reason to commit a murder.
I have no words
to herself. She was starting to progress in society. She was going up in further places. She was becoming smarter. She wasn't into the negativity. But when they kill us, I believe... they focus on our negativity. Even if it was committed 2 or 30 years prior to the time of them executing, basically.
What was it that she was actually...
A traffic stop. You know what I'm saying? They said that she was under suspicion of speeding. So, you know what I'm saying? They stopped her, and she possibly was speeding. But then the stop led to her and the officer having a back and forth. And the back and forth is what had her detained.
Now, has she been drinking or anything?
No drinking. It's just that,
and
think about
not
it.
Under any substance abuse or any of that.
Not at the time. She had been stopped before with weed on her before. That's what I talked about. She had issues with crimes before. Mm-hmm. But this particular time, she had got stopped. And if you ever get stopped in life, you wonder, why would somebody, stop you unjustly? You know what I'm saying? That tells you that it's a bad deal. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next one is manslaughter. This one it branches off. Basically, it is your accident, a murder. Uh-huh. Involuntary or voluntary.
Sorry, Chris, that's my bird, Pistachio, in the background. He wants
Pistachio?
to be a part of the interview. But keep going. I really want to hear about this. This is really, really great information, especially for our listeners to know, because I had no idea about the other two ladies who you were referring to. Yeah. So that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. So this one here, what is who are we referring to? When
we deal with involuntary, which is, recklessness, involuntary heat of passion, those crimes can be committed. Once I think of manslaughter.
What exactly can you describe to our listeners, what exactly is manslaughter?
Manslaughter is like, let's say you had a DUI, you fell asleep at the wheel and you wound up killing someone. Manslaughter. You caught your significant other cheating and you wanted to unload the clip on them. Manslaughter. That's your manslaughter charges. Being able to, not really do much time if you was. Those are murders.
And how much time can you get for? So it's kind of like an accident, but
it's close. Reason why they're called.
Or is that an accident?
That's why I say involuntary, voluntary. The DUI, that's involuntary. You had no reason to be drunk, driving a vehicle and killing somebody while you're drunk. So that's involuntary. Voluntary, the heat of passion. When you saw them cheating, you went into a rage that you initially wasn't in when you saw them. So that means you went with the intent. It happened, so you went berserk, you blacked out.
But it really wasn't an accident, though.
It happened from the heat of the moment. Like let's say
you intentionally meant to, because you went into this rage, so you intentionally meant to kill that person.
The damage that it happened, psychology. You know what I'm saying? Let's bring up a situation. If me and you was to go kill somebody and we planned it in the car, that was our intent right there in the car. We intended on doing what we was going to do.
Right.
When she went to the door, she didn't intend on killing anybody. She probably came in the door thinking that, hey,
she was just
routine. Right. When she saw them doing what they were doing,
she just kind of snapped and
a rage picked up.
Okay.
So that's what led to that. And you're allowed to do that. So you won't get as much time
So it's not so intent and
intent and unconscious, but you shouldn't be doing it because DUI, you're drunk. Mm-hmm. You went to sleep or something and you hit somebody. But the one that comes to mind with that one is Oscar Grant, Fruitvale Station, the movie. If you remember that one, Oscar Grant.
What
killed him outside the subway.
Tell us about Oscar Grant.
He got from Oakland. He, went with his friends to start off the new year, and they were heading back home. And his mom told him, "Hey, I want y'all to use the subway because I know that y'all will be drinking, and so that you won't have any altercation with the police, take the subway versus driving." He decided to take the subway with his friends.
Thinking that he was safe.
He got into an altercation with some people on the subway, so the police got involved and pulled them out and lined them up, 5 out of the group.
Okay.
Him and the police officer exchanged some words. The police officer shot him right in his back, killed him. Manslaughter.
Now, how is that considered manslaughter? I'm a little confused on that, Chris.
Because the reason why they considered that particular manslaughter, they said the cop accidentally discharged his weapon.
How was that an accident?
Accidentally charged his discharges. See how I used that? He accidentally discharged his weapon on somebody. He made it that he didn't really want to kill this guy. He didn't mean to kill this guy, which he died. Which doesn't in most people's eyes wouldn't make sense, but
right. I just, in my eyes, I'm having a hard time understanding because
most of us
there's a lock on it, right?
Yes.
On the pistol. So you have to unlock it.
Yes.
Or unsnap it, whatever, and then you have to actually pull it out.
Yes, and he had probably a baton. He had a taser.
Understanding how that is.
He had a baton. He had a taser. But in the heat of those moments, when it's dealing with melanated people, what do they grab for? They always go for the gun. Because he could have went for his baton. You already have this guy covered to the ground. You have him cuffed. He's no threat. So what's the purpose of pulling your gun? You can use your taser. Okay, taser. That's more least lethal, but you use your gun.
And they consider that to be manslaughter.
He was not found guilty of anything. Acquitted. All 3 of those cases I told you about, all of them were acquitted. All of them. No police officer was charged with anything related to those murders.
What is your opinion on that? Would you consider that personally manslaughter?
I would not, because manslaughter and a person pulling the gun. I just mentioned that manslaughter is the accident.
Right.
When you pull your gun and you got it firmly placed on the guy and you let that clip go, that's murder. If I was to pull out a gun and shoot anybody, that's murder. But it seems like when it comes to police officer, everything's held to a different standard. They get the leeway with things, and lives are not as important anymore. That's my take. I think that is
so. Raggedy. In this case, you would say that life did not matter.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter because it's not a wealthy life. And if you watch the movie, he was basically trying to get back on his feet. He had just got fired. In the movie, he was fired.
And I believe I did see that movie.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually a very good movie. If a person didn't watch that, go and watch Fruitville Station. Very good.
Yeah, I did see that because they did decide to take the subway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did
very
see
sad.
that because as you say it, I'm like, oh, I do remember that. I'm like recalling the incidents, that led up to that because they kind of portrayed his life leading up to that shooting.
That's one of Michael B. Jordan's first movies. Very good movie.
Yeah. But would you say things like that happen often?
Yes. It's probably been happening since the beginning of our time. And now that we got phones with camera, we can actually record them and let people see. Back in the day when we didn't have these type of technology, there was probably no way to show that to people. So now I think happens. So
you think there was a lot of manslaughter, with the quotation marks in the air as I'm doing.
That's why I put on this breaking down homicide, murder, and manslaughter, because that's what society shows us, but none of it matters when it comes to cops. None of it matters, seems to be.
Oh man, so what do you think about the Florida shooting while we're talking about, manslaughter and things of that nature? What is your opinion on the when events of that, and when it comes to the school policies and the teachers, now being required to
my
carry.
Heart goes out to them, man.
What do you think
goes
about
out
that?
to those people who was trying to save those kids. It's like it's a tough situation when you have officers who only are thinking about their pension and their retirement because they're not used to these situations and would rather see other people lose their life without them doing their job. That situation is tough because you had teachers trying to save children that weren't trained how to handle this, but you have a guy who was trained who didn't want no parts of it. He didn't want no parts of that. And that's what led to that. Even though the kid had a rifle, he's not used to the training that a police officer have with a 9mm. Nobody could tell me different. Him just shooting back at him would have probably ended all of that. But the fact he thought about just turning on from his kids, he made his business decision at the expense of all those children's lives and teachers. That's sad.
So what would be your resolution to...
I would not get rid of guns. No way. Because this is not China. And if you take away your guns from people, now the people can't defend themselves. I would just not have the system where people can buy semi-autumn rifles. What do we need those for? Like AK-47s. This is not Iraq. I mean, a personal hand weapon.